Well, boys, the cat's out of the bag. Secret's out. Everybody knows now. Yeah, it freaking smokes them, dude. I don't know if you watched the MLF on Guntersville, the VPT. My boy Jacob Wall, got second place, but the other Jacob Wheeler, won. He said it had everything to do with the new bait that he designed, and I'll say, you know, the bait's really cool and that, but in my eyes, it's the technique, dude. It's something that we've talked about. It's a play or a variation on something that we've talked about. And the one thing I can promise you is you're going to see it more and more in fishing, is taking some of these concepts and modifying them and tweaking them for use with that thing right up there, my Active Target 2 forward-facing sonar. So hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to do a pattern breakdown. I'm going to tell you exactly what he was doing and why he was doing it, and show you exactly how to rig it up. Got one of these? Little spinning rod? Yeah. So we're not going to dick around. We're going to get right into it. So Jacob Wheeler absolutely smoked him, dude. Like, smoked him. Caught, I think he had 26 one day. He ended up winning by like 8 pounds or something, maybe even more than that. But he won by a sizable margin on Guntersville, fishing offshore fish. But the trick was, Guntersville, which is actually where we're at right now, was not setting up in your traditional ledge fish. It wasn't like you were like idling a ledge and going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. That's the sound I make when I see fish on my graph. Like in a line, down a ledge, ready for a crankbait, ready for a spoon, ready for a big swim bait. It was setting up because of a lack of a current with a lot of suspended fish. And one of the best tools to catch some of those suspended fish, as we talked about, is that guy up there, my Lowrance Active Target or forward-facing sonar. And Jacob Wheeler talked a lot about the bait being the key. And basically he was fishing kind of what I would describe as like a fluke-style bait. It reminded me a lot of a variation on a spunk shad. And yeah, maybe the bait is magic, maybe he designed it, but for me, I always try to ask the questions and see what's really behind something, because a lot of times anglers don't tell you the full story, right? Like, think about it for a second. Oh, how'd you catch him? Oh, magic dock, you know? So they don't tell the full story, and in my opinion, the full story is what he had that thing rigged on and how he was presenting it to catch those suspended fish. And I'm going to show you exactly what it was. So basically he had multiple different jig heads, and they're the jig heads that we love. My little finesse ball heads like these. So I've showed you a lot in older videos about rigging up a Kitech on a ball head and how we do the tight lining technique, how we'll kind of fast reel it, and sort of, you can do a million things with it. You can fish it like a spoon, tweak it up. He was basically taking a ball head just like this thing right here and using it to present that bait up in the water column. These fish are on ledges, but they're not on them. They're above them. You guys probably saw the earlier video where we talked about schooling fish, how these fish are sort of near structure, but they're schooling, especially later in the day. They'll come up, they'll eat that spook, they'll chase bait. So they're in this general area, but they're not related to the structure that we like traditionally, I guess, seem to target them on more late in the summer. So what he was doing is he was taking this ball head right here, anywhere from an 1/8 to a 3/16 to a 1/4 ounce, all depending on depth. And I actually got a little sneaky bait. So Gambler is coming out with a whole range of soft plastics specifically designed for basically forward-facing sonar called the Scope It series. They incorporate a special plastics technology that shows up better on forward-facing sonar. But basically Jacob had, I wouldn't call it a fluke-style bait, but let's say a straight-tail minnow-style fluke-style bait. And that's what his design is. That's what this is that we've been working on. The one trick is with this one, you can see it has that sort of flat tail just like that. His was more of a straight tail, and that's what I personally like. But what's cool with this is you just mod it just like that, cut one side off, and then you flip it around and you cut the other side just like that, and you end up with a very finessey kind of, you can see how that tail twitches, dude. So the tail twitches a whole bunch. Just you know, classic like shad pattern. I think this is alewife, but you know, shad looking kind of minnow style bait. With the Kitech, you know, you're just rigging up like a paddle tail swim bait, right? And it's more about swimming it and then that tight line parallel. With this, it sort of takes that Kitech presentation, but you're actually fishing it more like a Nico rig. You'll take that ball head with a screw lock. I like the screw lock. It keeps that bait on there better. And then you're just threading it on, just like a classic Kitech. You know, you bring it through, thread it on, pop the hook out about where the middle is, slide that thing on, and then we're gonna do our roll so that it goes onto that screw lock right there, just like that. That's my background music so I don't get flagged for copyright. And that right there is what you get. It almost looks like an old school traditional bait, you know, it's a ball head and like a fluke style sort of minnow mimicker. It's super duper traditional. The biggest operating difference here is it's lighter than what you'd normally throw on these ledges. Whenever we think about offshore fish, we think about fishing the bottom. They're out deep, but they're on the bottom. The key with this thing that I can't emphasize enough is these fish are not on the bottom, and that's what's making them so much different and harder to catch. Once you figure it out though, and once you figure out how to present the bait, they're not that hard to catch. It's just a matter of kind of retraining your mind and also re-rigging so you have the right arsenal to attack these fish, as well as you're imagining how they're set up so you're presenting the bait correctly. To fish this thing, it's pretty simple. You're using your active target, your forward-facing sonar, and you're panning around. If you don't have forward-facing sonar, idle something, look for where the fish are, and identify the approximate depth most of the fish are. Is it 5 feet, 10 feet, over 20? You know, how deep are they? And then you're gonna throw this thing out and maybe give it like 2 seconds to sink, and then you're gonna start your, like a very, not aggressive, but constant Nico rig retrieve. So you're gonna start shaking that rod tip with the rod at a little bit of a 45, kind of up a little bit, shaking that rod tip, and what's gonna happen is the ball head is so light on here that it's gonna kind of stop sinking, and it's almost going to do that tight line thing that we do with the Kitex. So it's going to stop sinking, and if you have forward-facing sonar, you can actually watch it do this. It'll stop sinking, and the bait will sort of slowly pendulum, and it's just shaking and shaking as it slowly falls to the bottom. So that's one way to do it, and probably the most consistent way, and the way Jacob was doing it. Just shaking, and at some point, as that tight line occurs, especially if you're throwing to a specific fish, you're either going to see that fish engage with the bait and get interested and eat it, or you're going to see that nothing happen, or you're going to see that bait finally get to the bottom as it's tight lining down, and that fish went down to the bottom and sucked it up, and you're going to reel up, and all of a sudden there's going to be a fish there. It's almost kind of a blend of a Nico and a Demiki. So you're dropping on them, bait goes down, you get to the bottom, you see that fish is engaged and following it down to the bottom. When the bait hits the bottom, you start that constant shaking. Now, I'm not talking about like aggressive spoon fishing where you're like jerking it up all over the place. It's just enough to basically make that tail do exactly what it does, like that. And it doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit of a twitch and kind of shake, and what will happen is that fish will just follow it to the bottom and be like, that looks good, I saw it go to the bottom, I want to eat it, and he chomps it. I think one of the most interesting parts is it's very spotted bass oriented, but it seems like these largemouth, the more and more I use active target and forward facing sonar, the more and more I see ways that they behave like spots. They're as curious, maybe a little more tentative to bite than spots, but they do some of these same behaviors with following baits, especially when they're suspended. All you need is a classic ball head style jig. This is a Descent weights one. Since we're fishing for a largemouth, I'm using that heavier hook. I recommend a screw lock type ball head. You want to have, if you're going to pick two, get like an 1/8 and a 1/4 ounce. That'll cover you anywhere from like 5 to 10 all the way down to like 25 feet. And then just a simple fluke style bait and your favorite light spinning rod. I recommend something a little longer, like a 7'2" medium. Lighter line, as light as you can possibly go. It makes the bait sort of jingle, jangle, twitch better. It also allows that bait to fall more naturally, because a lot of this is about the fall. Your bait's never, for the most part, on the bottom unless you're having a fish follow it to the bottom and then you're doing your Nico rig kind of shake down on the bottom. For the most part, you're basically fishing that middle water column continually, and if you don't get bit by the time you get to the bottom, you're reeling up, targeting another fish, targeting another ball of bait, and making another cast. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys got any comments, anything to add about this, go ahead and drop it down in the comments box. And definitely, if you get a second, my boy Jacob Wall absolutely smashed it, dude. I'm so proud of him. He's such a hard worker and a genuine dude. He's taught me so much about fishing, dude. He is everything I want to be in fishing. So if you get a second, I'll put a link to his YouTube channel. Go give him a sub or follow him on Instagram as he fishes through the MLF BPT. If you like somebody who's honest and you're looking for an angler who's not lying to you, who's not kind of bloated with sponsors and all that shenanigans, and who just purely loves the sport of fishing and is grinding and trying to make it happen in that industry, Jacob's your guy, so go follow him. He's my guy, dude. He's such a good dude. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll see you back out with some more tips and techniques, and hopefully we'll get bog out here when it cools down a little bit. But tight lines for now. Go try yourself this little shaky, sneaky rig.